Hello, this is Frank DeMar with the End Times Research Ministry. I want to expose a prophecy that Jesus gave to us concerning the last days and how we would know for sure that we were in fact in those last days. One of the ways that people know for sure is by the sign of Noah's generation, which Jesus talks about in the 24th chapter of the book of Matthew. And the Lord revealed to us, when you read that chapter, that as it was in the days of Noah, so it shall be again in the last days. And then he goes on to give a whole dissertation about different signs that we would be seeing in the last days, all together at the same time. But he does make a note about Noah's generation again. The same characteristics as we saw in Noah's generation, they would show up again when all of these things, all these last day signs were taking place. Now, one of the signs is homosexuality. It was taking place during Noah's generation, and obviously, if we're in the last days, it has to show up again. It definitely is. Now, with that, keep in mind that Timothy, you could read 1 Timothy if you want, the Lord showed us in Timothy's writings that in the last days, the churches would not put up with sound doctrine. In other words, they would call themselves a church, but they would not be doing the things that we read about in the scriptures that would keep a sound doctrinal church. In other words, they would be inviting in sin. They would be doing things that are opposed from the word of the Lord, and we're seeing that taking place as well. So one of the things is this article that came out April the 24th, yesterday. Charlotte Gay wedding defies United Methodist Church rules. Now there's a video here. I'm not going to play the video. You can play the video if you'd like. I'm going to give you the link at my site, but it is a link that shows two gay men that are in the Methodist Church. The Methodist Church married them, and they're staying in the church, and obviously this Methodist Church approved what they were doing. So what I wanted to point out to you is how we handle people who are professing to be Christians and people who are in the church professing to be Christians that are blatantly sinning. And not only that, but it's recognized by the pastor and he does nothing about it. Not only that, but they even boast about it. So what I'd like to do is, here's that information. It depends on how far or how in depth you want to get with this. But what I did for you, I picked out a video from the pastor of Calvary Chapel in Hawaii. He did a fantastic job about how a church is supposed to react when you have blatant sin in the church. And he makes a distinction between a non-Christian and a Christian. Can you judge a non-Christian? Can you judge a Christian based on what we know from the word of the Lord? And he points out in this scriptures, he'll be pointing out to you 1 Corinthians, where Paul gives us an outline what you should do, how a church should react when there's blatant sin inside the church. So all you have to do when you go to my website is scroll down and watch the video. And here's the bottom line. We're seeing the same kind of information as you saw right here in this article today. We're seeing this being spread around the country, and not only in our country, the United States, but other places around the world that are beginning to do the same thing. They're allowing the sin to come into the church, not casting it out as the word of the Lord says. So let's see how much you really care about this. Let's see how many people will go over to the video below at my website and see what it says, because I think you'll be blown away to find out there's a love message inside this 1 Corinthians message to a church who is allowing sin and people who are blatantly sinning. This is Frank DeMar with the End Times Research Ministry.